Good evening everyone, this is my day 12 update for the Rear Zones blog. So this morning I headed back to the Bhering factory, so I visited there early on in the week to go and speak to a few managers there and go and speak to some entrepreneurs based within the factory, so fashion designers, artists and other creative organisations there. Again, I was taken on another mini tour of the factory to go and have a look at all of the spaces pretty much. So it's an enormous factory of around 6 floors. It was originally a chocolate factory, so it was interesting to hear a little bit more about the history of the factory. So yeah, I got to speak to some entrepreneurs there to discuss how long they've been there and to get their get their views on some of the impacts of this centre in the local area. I was also able to quiz some of the managers about whether they feel visitor numbers have increased from mega events and whether, how the businesses have changed inside the factory, how they're retaining businesses, but also to hear about some of the other events they have inside the factory. So they have a weekly Saturday event where it's an open factory where visitors are able to come in and have a look around, but also to have a look at to speak to them about their events program they have. So they have yearly annual festivals and lots of other bits and pieces going on throughout the year, where they have galleries with artists from the centre showcasing their art. So that was really good to hear about that as well. So I was there for most of the morning, and then I headed back into Rio de Janeiro, nearby the Porto Maravilha area. So I was going to be speaking to a local tour guiding group who operate in Provedencia. So I was going to be speaking to one of the tour guiding members actually lives in Provedencia, and that sits above the Porto Maravilha area. So yeah, so I was going to be speaking to them just to get some more perspectives on how they feel, whether they feel they're involved in the mega event process and project planning. And it seemed to be the case once again that they felt they didn't feel very included in the planning process. They felt like CEDA, who are the Urban Regeneration, Urban Development Organisation, weren't actually able to speak to them on these sort of issues, and they didn't feel they were involved. And yeah, to find out that some of the money had actually been diverted that was meant to be spent in these favelas to other urban projects in and around the ports was certainly disappointing to hear. And yeah, so speaking to residents and the tour guiding group, they don't really seem to be happy about the type of legacy that's been created for them. They don't really feel included in the project's ambitions, and so that was their thoughts on the process of the project. And I've heard this time and time again as I've been here. Local small tour operators, small businesses generally feel that they don't seem to be involved in the processes. They haven't been involved in the post-games programs that the city government have set up. And again, there's lots of areas in the ports, warehouses that are abandoned, that could quite easily house small businesses, and there isn't really a programme of activity in place other than for some of the museums which are down in the port. So Museum of Tomorrow, the Rio Museum of Arts, where they seem to have more effective programmes in place. However, they don't seem to be integrated into a much broader programme. So yeah, that was really my final meetings for today. So I headed back to the hotel in the evening, and tomorrow I'm going to be conducting my final interview with the Museum of Tomorrow before we go up to have a look at Christ the Redeemer. So we're going to be going on a tour up to Christ the Redeemer, and that's going to be a final I suppose tourist activity before we get back on the plane home to the UK. So I probably won't be posting up a blog tomorrow, but I will be going to visit the museum tomorrow, and obviously any insights that I will share on Twitter using the Rear Zones hashtag, and post up yeah, and if there's any good pictures from the museum tomorrow, I'll of course post them up onto the blog as well. But I hope you've enjoyed some of the updates I've been posting up here over the last couple of weeks or so. And yeah, and if you want to get in contact with me at all, then please feel free to send me a tweet, or you can contact us through the blog. You contact through the blog on the form on the contact page. Yeah, and I hope you've enjoyed it. So yeah, that's it for now, and I'll speak to you soon.